We're live. Okay. Um, I am looking for, and of course, as soon as I get on live camera, I can't find the tab where I had look, and led me to yet another public statement in my own abode, public but private. And really, had I had my cameras going, I think it would have been really beneficial to some. Uh, um, Here it is. Um, I just wanted to make a quick comment because I remember back in like 1995 reading Mary Williamson's, and I don't know where she stands these days. That's 1995, and this is obviously 2022. But her synopsis and on A Course in Miracles, which was um, I don't really want to try to describe what it was about because I didn't read A Course in Miracles. I read Mary Williamson's book, and now I can't even remember what it was called, but I remember that it was like her presentation and interpretation of of A Course in Miracles, which who that was written and created by, I don't know. I can't remember. I could easily look it up, but I easily get distracted because my mental health and my intellectual and my mental capacity, I'm still working on recovery. Um, but after my public private statement in regard to a lot of things that I've experienced and seen, and direction of many business endeavors, um, I started thinking about Stephen Covey. And I'm not a promoter of people, uh, authors, or myself, or anyone except for my Lord and Savior Jesus. Um, um, I don't believe in guruism. I believe that's one of the reasons I have a difficult time as a Christian attending church, because I don't like um, not being able to have back and forth sort of. And I've tried to um, attend to like private Bible studies, looking for that opportunity, and have yet to find one where there's like equal listening and allowing participation, and individual uh, because even in a question and answer, when there's an instructor giving out a home assignment, it's still a directed sort of from the instructor's perspective. Anyway, so back to Stephen Covey, and I had read his book many years ago. And again, I'm not trying to promote Stephen Covey. I don't know what his actual physical being experiences are throughout the existence of his physical being. Um, um, However, the book, The 7 Habits of a Highly Successful Family, I read back in like 1995, or I can't remember if it was just before or just after moving to Colorado in 1996. Anyway, I was able completely follow everything that he talked about in that book. And I had presented that to my own uh, family, as in the family I grew up with, and I was rejected and again ostracized and made fun of um, for for having an interest in bringing my family um, to a healthier, what I saw as a healthier way of being. Um, so after I read that book, and then more recently, and again, I can't remember, and I can't even remember if I completely finished reading the book, The Eighth Habit. Um, and again, but the Eighth Habit book seemed to start taking a turn that I was like, but still had information and philosophy that I could agree with. So I wanted to say the Eighth Habit. This I'm quoting one of the excerpts from the book, The Eighth Habit, and I remember one that isn't on this internet page. Um, and I can't remember if it's actually one of the Eighth Habits where he stated that where there is congruency, there will be success, I think is the exact quote, but I'm not certain on that. And that can be easily looked up. But right here in front of me, the Eighth Habit, and I quote, represents the pathway to the enormously promising side of today's reality. It stands in stark contrast to the pain and frustration I've been describing. And it almost brings tears to my eyes because it's very, as far as my experiences. And again, I am a biological mother fighting for my biological children and my biological grandchildren, both adult and minor age, as far as my children, because I have adult and minor age children, and fighting for in regard to the world I would like to promote for my and everybody else's biological children. And I'm sorry that my assumption would be that everyone would like their own biological children to live in a peaceful world in this, hopefully coming out of the very tumultuous, very really dark and ugly human existence. The Eighth Habit, and what I just read as a quote from that book, sort of again is, it to me is a very timely, a good time to look at this book. The next excerpt, The Eighth Habit, is the answer to the soul's yearning for greatness, the organization's imperative for significance. And I'm not certain of the use of the word imperative in this, because to me, imperative is defined as important. So I'm reading it and interpreting it. The organization's important for significance. So I have to take a closer look at how Stephen Covey wants and need or is represent or using that word. The Eighth Habit is the answer to the soul's yearning for greatness, the organization's imperative for significance, and superior. Now I just subconsciously, consciously received interpretation or how that word is meant. Um, for greatness, the organization's imperative for significance and superior results, and humanity's search for its voice. Humanity being, to me, how I would interpret the word humanity for myself and my biological children is to humanity is all of human population, not of a not of an organization's, be it a Christian church or a political movement, uh, um, but humanity from an individual existence standpoint. Um, Individual and collective, because my assumption is, and again I apologize to whatever culture or whoever mother, father, sister, brother, whatever, wouldn't interpret the word humanity as this, or um, in the same way, or or having a need for their own biological children, because that's where I'm coming from. I always refer to children because that's where I'm coming from, a stand of a biological mother who has experienced much pain emotionally and frustration. Um, um, for humanity's search for an individual and collective voice, in hopes that we have, uh, no matter what culture we have belonged to or define ourselves as, Christian, Islamic, or Buddhist, or Chinese, or Japanese, or African, or American, or Italian, no matter what we define ourselves as collective, that we as individuals uh, can agree that our human existence would include a need, a yearning for an ability to live in this very diverse uh, global culture. Um, and diverse, it includes as anyone who's, had any kind of conscious uh, existence. Culture doesn't just include um, skin color. It's not just about religion. It's about the culture of transgenderism, and the culture of lesbianism, and the culture of homosexual men, um, and all that. And I have my own personal views of all that, but it doesn't come from a place of hate. It comes from a place of my own calling within, and not wanting to be, I use the word, recruited. And again, I can be someone's friend without signing on to a, 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 a belief system that I, in my individual calling as a Christian female, non transgender, heterosexual woman, um, uh, I don't know what the end word there is. Um, But as an individual person, I yearn to have uh, the ability to create and participate in a diverse culture, which includes women's rights in a different manner, because there's practices going on that I've uh, recently, as in the past 5 years, maybe, um, that are completely in violation of human rights. Um, so I would call for, or not call for, again, I'll just apologize for my assumption that every human being has a need to create a world of peaceful living, not peace as in gun, or because that's another cultural interpretation. Um, um, for our voices in regard to human existence, um, no matter what your skin color or your sexual status, or, and I've said many times, just to give an example, sorry, Helen Gurley Brown, but as a non-transgender heterosexual female, your work in the 60s has really put a damper on my existence as a biological mother of my own biological children. And I'm sorry to point out Helen Gurley Brown, because there were many others in the women's movement that I don't understand, and I go back and refer again, because every time I speak or bring to mind an example when I go out into the world, then there's a representation. Like, I went to Target the other day, and there was a young female breastfeeding her baby on, um, sitting in the sitting in the store, breastfeeding her baby in the middle of the store, which I don't have a I'm not trying to limit her. I'm simply saying that I don't understand the need. Um, and that comes from being raised in a home where pornography was my father's motivation for absolutely everything that he did. So um, it's only alarming to me on behalf of that woman. And it kind of refers back to the fight that, but like from my early 20s, I want to say, is the around the time the late 80s, early 90s, when the whole thing and the girls were fighting and fighting it for a right to dress in spaghetti straps and negligee looking garments in public. And it simply puts it in, from my perspective as a biological mother, I would instruct my daughter that no, it's not appropriate, and it doesn't have to do with a judgment upon you for wearing it. It has to do with what you don't see as a young person, either or a new person coming in who maybe didn't experience the super saturated commercialization of pornography, and and what you're inviting. Because from this perspective, and because of subconscious pushing out of our childhoods and trying to raise ourselves above um, our childhood experiences, where we've blocked out memories, and I'm telling you that the memories come back, and you it's not pleasant when those memories start coming back, and you have a complete sight and view of of what your childhood and the tainting of your childhood created in your existence. So it's not a matter of judgment in telling or teaching my daughter that wearing negligee looking garments in public is not appropriate. It's not a matter of judgment. It's not even a matter of sin in that regard. It's a matter of their personal safety and knowing what's out there, and what they don't see, and what they might be inviting in, which they don't isn't their intention in their fight, and who is driving them to fight for such a right to wear negligee looking garments in public, and how and where their life, the direction their life might be going in by doing that. So the purpose, again, in ending this line of discussion as far as this goes, my motivation is not in judgment of the minor age person or young early 20s teenage person. It is in bringing their awareness to what they could be not seeing for themselves. And again, sorry to Helen Gurley Brown, because I'm also not I'm not a scapegoat kind of person. So I don't want Helen Gurley Brown necessarily to be held for all the 1960s movement of what was supposed to be women's rights. I personally don't see it as a valid battle, because they didn't include a woman's right to maintain a home if she wanted to, or equal equality within the home, and equal respect for a traditional woman's role in raising children and cooking dinner for her husband if she wants to, if that's the way she chooses. Because before I personally gave birth to children, for the first time in 1987, I was very goal-oriented, career-oriented female. After giving birth to my children, I honestly simply wanted to stay and needed to stay home with my children and take care of, and had no problem with cleaning house and cooking dinner for my who I really consider to be my husband, even though there was no legal documentation of our marriage, but the biological father of my biological children. And I think the 1960s movement set women up to be, and not only women, but now it's come to, the economy being such that men, women, transgender or non-transgender, heterosexual or homosexual or whatever culture they belong to, having to work 40 around the clock practically. And I specifically can contribute it partially the condition of the U.S. and possibly global economy. I have no idea what other youth, and when I say the word youth, I'm referring to chronologically 40 years of age and younger, because I'm 58 chronological years old. And of the youth having to work around the clock to maintain a very modest abode, which I don't have a problem with, modest abodes. I'm saying what the expectation of or is, and I can find a direct correlation to the women's movement in regard to the condition of the economy right now. I'm not saying it's the only factor, but I can find it as in the 1960s women's movement contributory in a large way to the condition of the present day economy. And I am not looking to support the good old boy network either. Again, I'm saying, simply because I'm speaking about and against and bringing to light the women's movement of the 1960s. Don't good old boys network assume that I'm in support of because I see what all that involved also. On to the third excerpt, which I haven't read. Knowing your mission, role, and a sense of destiny. The eighth habit is defining what that sense of self is, which is sort of what I'm speaking on. It's also about defining your purpose and your meaning. And I know what my sense and where I'm coming from. And as I've stated, and I think it's important to state where I'm coming from. And it is from the perspective of a biological mother, needing to create and participate in creating a better condition of living for youth, which is chronologically 40 years of age to conception, in my definition, in my personal definition. So I just wanted to make a public post, and I really would like to continue making postings. So I might go to the library and if I can still find it, I think I looked for Stephen Covey's book, The Eighth Habit. recently, as in sometime in the past 5 years, for the purpose of reacquainting myself with the philosophy, not necessarily with the author, because again, I'm not looking to be a guru, and I'm not looking for a guru. So I'll end it, and I'll end my thing there, and with a goal of obtaining a copy of the book, The Eighth Habit, either by way of online access or the public library, and in the way that Marianne Williamson, again, I really liked Marianne Williamson's book. And again, I'm not presenting her as a guru or elevating her as as someone who I look up to more than myself, or my own, or my own views, other than Marianne, I agree with you on a lot of stuff in your book. In And I also can find agreement in Stephen Covey's writings. So there, I'll present my own personal goals, and with in mind the actual, I think a goal would be the elevation of biological mothers in specific, and biological fathers or other men who agree with a need to create a better condition of existence for ourselves and for youth.